All right, let's dive into one of the most intense, high-stakes chapters in the entire New Testament, 1 Corinthians chapter 9. We're about to step into a courtroom, a training ground, and a racetrack, all to figure out the true price of the ultimate prize.
But before we get into it, just think about this for a second. What is the ultimate prize that you're running for in your life? What's that one goal that makes every single sacrifice worth it? The Apostle Paul is about to lay out his answer, and honestly, it challenges everything we think we know about what it means to win.
So, the scene opens with Paul on the defensive. Can you believe it? His authority, his whole identity as a leader, is being questioned by some folks in the church at Corinth. So, he steps up to defend himself, and believe me, he is not holding back. Let's watch this play out.
We kick things off in verse 1, and it starts with a bang. Paul just hits his critics with these two rapid-fire questions. You can just picture him, his voice booming with confidence. Am I not an apostle? Am I not free? Right out of the gate, he's establishing his authority.
Still, in verse 1, he plays his trump card. For him, this isn't some second-hand story he heard. He asks, "Have I not seen Jesus Christ our Lord?" And in your mind, you can just see it. A flashback to a dusty road to Damascus, a man thrown to the ground by a light so blinding, so powerful, it changed absolutely everything. That's his credential.
Then in verse 2, he turns and points right at them. He basically says, "You want proof of my work? Go look in a mirror." Imagine a master craftsman holding up his finest creation, or a king pressing his royal seal into hot wax to prove something is authentic. Paul says the Corinthian church, they themselves, are the living, breathing proof that his work is the real deal.
Okay, so from verse 3 all the way to 6, Paul shifts gears. He goes from his authority to his basic human rights. It's like he's ticking them off a list. In verse 4, he's like, don't we have the right to eat and drink? Basic support. Then in verse 5, the right to a family life, just like Peter and the other apostles. And finally, in verse 6, he gets really personal, asking why it's just him and Barnabas who have to work a side hustle to pay the bills. He is building an absolutely airtight case for what he's owed.
So in verse 7, he drops 3 common-sense examples that are just impossible to argue with. First up, the soldier. Picture a Roman soldier, decked out in full gear, marching off to war. He doesn't buy his own sword, right? He doesn't pack his own lunch. The army provides for him. It's obvious. That's just how it works.
The second example in verse 7 is the vintner, the vineyard owner. Imagine a farmer who has spent years tending to his vines. You can see his hands are stained purple from the grapes. Of course he gets to taste the fruit of his labor. It's natural. It's expected.
And the third one, from verse 7, really hammers the point home. Picture a shepherd, out in these beautiful green hills, surrounded by his sheep. He just reaches down and pours himself a cup of fresh milk. He takes care of the flock, and in return, the flock provides for him. These are simple, undeniable truths of life.
Now from common sense, Paul moves to sacred law in verses 8 through 10. He pulls out this old law. You shall not muzzle an ox while it treads out the grain. So picture this powerful ox working hard, but it's free to eat as it goes. Paul then asks a great question. Is God's law really just about animal welfare? Nah. He says it was written for our sakes, to establish a principle for all time. A worker deserves to be sustained by their work.
In verses 11 and 12, he brings it right back to them. He says, look, we sowed spiritual seeds in you, things with eternal value. You can just see these hands planting glowing, otherworldly seeds. So is it really such a big deal if we reap a simple material harvest? And now picture those same hands just receiving a loaf of bread, a few coins. He even points out that they're supporting other leaders, so why not him, the guy who started it all for them?
And he rests his case in verses 13 and 14 with his 2 final knockout punches. First, temple law. Picture a priest serving at the altar in Jerusalem. He gets a portion of the offerings as his payment. It's an established system. And then, the final word, a direct command from Jesus Christ himself that those who preach the gospel should live from the gospel. I mean, at this point, his argument is ironclad. You think, okay, case closed.
But this is where the whole story takes a massive, shocking turn. Just when you think Paul is about to pass around the offering plate and demand his back pay, he flips the entire script. After proving beyond a shadow of a doubt what he is owed, he's about to reveal what he really wants.
Verse 15, 3 words that change everything. He says, but I have used none of these things. Imagine that long checklist of rights he just so carefully built, and now just see a hand just tearing it right in half. He built this perfect, logical case for his rights, only to voluntarily throw them all away.
And the big question is, why?
Verses 16 to 18 give us the mind-blowing answer. For Paul, preaching isn't a job, it's a necessity, a divine compulsion he can't escape. So what's his reward? Get this, his reward is to not get paid. His prize is the privilege of offering the gospel as a totally free gift. Picture him holding out this priceless, glowing jewel, and when someone tries to pay him for it, he just gently refuses with a smile. The joy of giving the gift is his payment.
So if he's given up his rights, if he's not in it for the money, then what is his motivation? What's his strategy? Well, in this next section, Paul lays out the radical philosophy that drives every single thing he does. So in verses 19 through 22, he unpacks this incredible strategy. It's all about radical empathy. He says, though I am free from all, I have made myself a servant to all. It's like he's a chameleon, adapting to every environment. See him in a synagogue speaking their language to connect with the Jews. Now see him in a Roman marketplace, using logic and reason to connect with the Greeks. Then see him sitting with the poor and the marginalized, becoming weak to win the weak. He's changing his style, never his core message, to build a bridge to every single person he can.
And here it is in verse 23, the whole point. Why does he do all this? I do this for the gospel's sake. It's not about being popular. It's not about being a people pleaser. It is all about removing every possible barrier so that people can hear the message. And check out the end of that verse, that I may be a partaker of it with you. Imagine that bridge he's building, not just two people, but connecting him with all of them so they can all walk together and share in the reward.
And that brings us to the grand finale. Paul shifts from his personal story to this powerful, universal metaphor that everyone, back then and right now, can understand. He's taking us to the stadium. Verse 24, picture the ancient Olympic Games. You can hear the roar of the crowd, see the runners just exploding from the starting line. Paul says, look, everyone in the race runs, but only one person gets the prize. So his command to us is electric. Run in such a way that you may obtain it. He's saying, don't just jog, don't just show up, run to win.
Now in verse 25, he talks about the discipline it takes. Every athlete, he says, is temperate in all things. That means a strict diet, grueling training. And why do they do it? To win a perishable crown. Imagine the champion, this wreath of laurel leaves placed on his head. It's an amazing moment, but by the next morning, those leaves are already wilting. But Paul says we are running for an imperishable crown, a reward that never ever fades, a crown made not of leaves, but of pure, unending light. In verse 26, Paul describes his own effort. He says he doesn't run aimlessly, and he doesn't fight as one who beats the air. Picture a boxer shadowboxing in a ring, lots of movement, but zero impact. Now picture that same boxer turning to a heavy bag, and every single punch lands with a thud. That's Paul. His effort has a target, it's focused, it's powerful. And the final verse, verse 27, is just this stunning moment of personal honesty. After all that, it comes down to this. Picture that runner. It's Paul himself. He's exhausted, but he's pushing through the pain, disciplining his own body to cross that finish line. And why? Because his greatest fear is that he could coach everyone else to victory, only to be disqualified himself. He's terrified of being the coach who doesn't live by his own rules. It's a powerful gut check that this race is personal, the discipline is non-negotiable, and the prize is worth everything. And it leaves us with that one big question. Are we running to win?